Okay, so empty blank scene. I'm just going to select all these objects and delete them to get started. Select all with A. And then X to delete them. Just clear our scene. Now for the start of my base shape, I'm going to enable another add-on in Blender called Extra Objects. I'm going to edit preferences and I can look for, it'll either be in add-ons or extensions. Just in this newest update, they've added extensions. They've separated out certain add-ons into extensions. I think the core ones are in add-ons, then the community ones are in extensions. So it really depends on what version of Blender you have. If you have a slightly older version, you'll be able to find this in the add-ons. Just by searching for extra mesh, which I can see there. So you're looking for extra mesh objects. If it's not there, it will be in get extensions. So mine is already installed, but if it's not installed, you just see the button install. Click install extra mesh objects. So with that enabled, I'm going to have some extra objects in my mesh dropdown. See, now I have a rock generator, a single vert, a round cube, which is what we're going to use today. Other interesting things like gears might be useful if you're doing some kind of steampunky kind of mech. Joints, diamonds, and extras. And they basically generate them randomly. So if I look at the diamond, all these work by, they get created and then the operator panel lets us modify what's coming in. So diamond, brilliant diamond, gem. I select one of those. I select diamond. There's my diamond. And then my operator panel is where I can actually define the radius, a whole bunch of settings for it. Change of sharp or severe, how many segments, the table radius, the crown height. Just quick ways of generating those kind of shapes. But I don't need a diamond for the moment. So I'm going to add a mesh round cube. And there's my round cube. I'm going to change some settings in here in my operator. First, in the presets, I'm going to pick a quad sphere. I'm going to bring the divisions down to 4. So I'm going to create my base shapes in low poly and then use subdivision surface modifiers on top of it to get it smoother. Okay, round cube. I'll go ahead and jump into edit mode now. This is ready to go. Edit mode. You can just press tab and tab into edit mode. Jump into wireframe mode. Shortcut for this, I don't know if I covered this already, Z. We'll bring up this little four-way directional thing, Z on the keyboard, and you can just pick between your different modes. It can be a bit faster than going up here every single time. Change your rendered mode. Wireframe. And then I just want to select the top half of these vertices and delete it. So I'll jump into front view, draw a box, select just the top half here. Or in face select, you can just select the top faces. Same thing. And then we just want to delete those faces. So we have half. We have our bottom cup shape. X, delete faces. You should be left with this bottom half here. Next, in Edge Select, I'm just going to grab the edge loop here, so Alt-click, and you'll get the loop all around the top here, and then I'm going to extrude this straight up with Extrude. Oh, it's locked into the wrong axis. I want it to be in the Z axis. I'm just going to press Z and Z again to lock it in. This is going to be our cup. Decide how long or short you want it to be. I think that looks about decent enough. That'll be our cup base mesh. We can jump back into object mode next. Object mode. And then we're going to add our modifiers to the stack. So first off, I'll add a solidify to give some thickness to this cup. So add modifier, solidify, which is in generate, solidify. Hi, how you doing? And then we just want to adjust the thickness to give some inner thickness here. So just raise that thickness. I think 0.15 is just about fine. Decide for yourself. We are going to double this up by adding the inner. also. Yeah, I'm just gonna add something for the people that just joined us. Okay, so people who just joined us, there are some notes you can catch up on what we've just been doing. It's just a text file. It's not one of my fancier tutorials, but you can catch up. Anyway, solidify added. And then after that, I'm going to add a bevel into the mix. So add modifier bevel, generate bevel. You can see we're getting a bevel along the top edge here. We can adjust that. So anywhere between 0 and 0.1, we'll give a variance. I'm going to add just to about there and add another segment. Let's add some beveled edge to the cup. And then next, add some smoothness to make it look smoother, because the goal is obviously this cup. We want it to be smooth and round. We're going to add a subdivision surface modifier to that. So add modifier subdivision surface. Again, it's in generate. And just so the bevel can operate after the subdivision and subdivide properly, I'm going to move this up in the stack. So I'm going to grab it by the end handle here and just drag it to the top. I want the subdivision to be the first in the stack so the bevel can happen after it. Just drag that up to the top. And then the last thing is to add the shade auto smooth just to automatically smooth the light dark values between faces and make things appear even smoother. So I'm just going to right click on the model, shade auto smooth, and you'll see an extra thing appear. It's now handled differently. Shade auto smooth is a modifier in itself. You'll see it appear along the bottom here. So shade auto smooth, just right click. And one final thing, we're getting this kind of blending at the edge. That might be a little bit annoying. We can adjust that in the bevel settings. Under shading, I'm just going to turn on harden normals right here. Just give us more crisp edge definition with the lighting. You'll see the difference when we turn it on or off. Harden normals off. Harden normals on. See, it's just a little bit more definition. And there it is, smooth by angle. Okay, top part complete. Nice, so we should save our work at this point because we got our first base model done. File save as. Cup bot 1. So next part we're going to work on is the handle coming out the side. So kind of squared off shape, but rounded around the edges is what we're going for. But what I am definitely going to start with is a cube as my base shape. So in Blender, first I'll position my 3D cursor where I think the handle is going to appear. So that's my front view. Then this is my right orthographic. And I'm just going to put the handle about here. I'll use my 3D cursor to paint right on the model. Let's say about here is good. So I painted that cursor just on the outside of the model here. I'll add a cube in that position. Add mesh cube. And then we just want to scale and move this down where it should be. Yeah, that's a good thickness. Okay. So when you're happy with the shape, we want to apply our transform so we don't get any weird results from our modifiers or bevel modifiers later. You can see our scale and our location stuff has been moved. The scale one is the most concerning. We just want to apply those scale transformations so that reads 1, 1, 1. And while I'm here, I'm just going to rename this to handle. So I know this is the cup handle. So apply all the transforms. I want to go to object or just press Control A and apply. It's just so the modifiers will function correctly. So object, apply, all transforms. And I see the handle, 111. Let's jump into edit mode on this. And I'm going to go to face select. I'll just select the front and the back face. Shift select both at the same time. Hey, how are you?
Hey. Oh, I sent you an email last night, but I need to talk to you about
Okay. I did send you an email back this morning, I think.
I wasn't able to check it because
Oh, yeah. Because of the situation. Yeah. How's your finger? Finn tried to skip out on the assignment by electrocuting himself to death last night.
Well, no, it's like the wall.
No, he's dead.
The socket in my wall like sparked and it broke my charger on my laptop. It also broke my monitor as well. Well, yeah, like the plug thing. Because like I had my computer plugged into the wall and same with my monitor, and they both the charger. My computer itself was like still on and it could work.
That's the best result.
And also the charger for my monitor also broke. I gotta get new cables.
Yeah.
And I also, I think it might have been the fuse in the wall. We have to get an electrician to come in and well, I didn't even have like extension cables or anything. It just like, I don't know. It just blew, I think.
Your prayers were answered. Well, anyway, I'm glad the computer's okay. That's the expensive part to replace.
Like I've had this for just over a year, so like
oh wow.
I would have just gone to warranty, but
invest in surge protected extension cords. It'll protect your monitor at least. Anyway, so this handle, I've selected the front face and the back face. I'm just going to inset both of them at the same time. Press I to inset for the shortcut. I just use inset faces over here. And this inset's going to define how thick our handle is going to be. So if I make this hole really, really small, then our handle is going to be really, really chunky. So decide how thick you want that cup handle to be. I'm going to say about there, looks decently proportional. And then keeping both of these faces selected, we just want to create a bridge between these. So we could delete the faces and then fill in each one, but we don't need to because we just right click and go to bridge faces. It's going to create a bridge, a tunnel to those two faces. Faces bridged, and now we have a hole. And play around with the options to see what else you can do. Okay, so next we just want to delete the couple of faces around the edge here. I'm just going to press / on my keyboard to focus on just this object. I don't know if you knew about that shortcut. And what I'm doing is toggling local view in case you don't have that key. This means I only see the object I'm working on right now, and everything else is gone, so I can't see the cup anymore. And I just want to select these few faces around. You can Alt-click to get the loop, or just Shift-select And I'm going to delete these faces. X, delete faces. And then I'm just going to flatten these edge loops off here, these open connectors, so they're straight up. So for that, I need to go to Edge Select. And instead of rotating and trying to get this to be perfectly flat and straight, I'm just going to scale all of these vertex to be 0 on the X, make them perfectly flat. So if I just type S and X, I can scale only on the X. You can see me bringing that down, but I can bring it down into the minus. And what I want is the scale on the X to be pure 0. Giving me a perfectly straight connector. I can do both at once. Shift and Alt to grab the other loop. And then in shortcuts, I can just say scale on the x-axis to the value of 0. So just type SX0 and then enter, and that will confirm that action. So quick shortcut to flatten that off, SX0, enter. The same as scaling to 0 on the x-axis, SX0, enter, flatten that off. Yo. Yes, S0, a singularity. So all the vertex collapse to a singular point. Okay, I can move that back a little bit. And I just want to fill those two holes. So just press F for fill or face fill. Okay, back to object mode. Another shortcut, Control-2, will quickly add a subdivision surface modifier to our object. I'll add with two levels of subdivision as well. So quick shortcut, because it's one you might use a lot today. Control-2. Which I realize I can't use because I'm using Control-2 to do this. All right. But hey, it's a good shortcut to know. Let's add the subdivision surface modifier with 2 levels of subdivision. And then similar to the cup, we're going to add a bevel modifier with harden normals turned on. Generate bevel. And in shading, turn on harden normals. I realize I might need more control. I'm going to jump back into edit mode real quick. And I'm just going to add a single loop cut down the center for some control. So loop cut. I just want to add a vertical one in the center. Like so. Let's see how much I want to bevel that by. And then one thing you'll notice about this is that we're not quite getting the squared off angle that we need to make it a more angular shape. What we're getting is a soft curve, and we want it to be more angular curve. So for that, I'm going to need to add some more beveling, some loop cuts in here. So actually, I won't make any loop cuts. I'll just get to my select mode. I'm still in edge select. I'm just going to grab the loops right here. Alt click the loop in the corner. Shift Alt click the other corner loop. And then I'm going to use bevel. To give that shape more definition. So right now it's interpolating, it's smoothing into that smooth curve. I'll just add a little bit of bevel. We get that more dynamic shape. The next thing I want to add is edge crease. This is a way to combat the smoothing that's going on in subdivision surface. We can actually add more sharpness and define that in the model so that when subdivision surface happens, it doesn't smooth it over as much. Shortcut is Shift E, but you can find it in the edge menu here. What I'm going to do is just grab the edge loops. I'm going to start with these ones on the end here, all the way around. And then as I press Shift E, or if I can go to edge crease, I can increase that value by moving my mouse up or down, so I'm like in the mode. And see, rather than smoothing it off to that rounded edge, I can actually harden it. Make sure it's hard. So I'm going to increase that all the way up. Make sure this is hard and flat against the mug. I'll do the same on the bottom here. Shift Alt, and I'm not getting the loop all the way around because it's not a quad. Shift E, and then just move your mouse to adjust the value. Two ends flat here. Yes. Both. Yes. depending on what the scenario requires. So like here, I don't know how I could have got that result without adding more of a bevel. And here I could have added more edge loops, but it probably would have taken me slightly a little bit longer. And especially on the side here, like something like this, we're just adding a few more loops that would add definition. But I want to do it on the sides here as well, and that would require a bunch of vertical loops and moving them around. It's just more time consuming. So the second part of this is grab the loops on the sides and add edge crease to them as well. So Alt click, and that gets me the loop all the way down to the bottom. Shift Alt, loop all the way at the top. I'll make sure to get the edges here as well. I'll grab the other edges as well. I can add all of this edge crease at once. Shift Alt, and make sure to grab these two parts on the top and bottom. And you've seen these purple lines in the axe mesh as well when we opened it up in Blender. That dwarven axe, that's where edge crease was applied to this mesh as well, or that mesh as well. So again, Shift E, and just bring it out. And then the last step, we just want to hide those little facets. Again, Shade Auto Smooth, or handle. Oh no, not last step. What am I saying? Shade Auto Smooth anyway. And I might add more segments to the bevel just until I get it as smooth as I want. There we go. That'll do. Okay, last step on the handle is to make this conform to the shape of the cup. We don't want to just place it again, and we definitely don't want to waste time modeling the ends here to fit this round shape. So for that, I'm going to use another modifier, the shrink wrap modifier. Again, on the handle, I'll add modifier, generate shrink wrap, no, deform shrink wrap. And remember the day we were talking about modifiers, we were going through this is for like shrinking models of other clothes, can be used for hair, but also for things where you want them to fit perfectly together, we can conform parts of the mesh. So you'll see shrink wrap, wrap method, and the target object. We want to select our cup, which is named round cube. I can just get the little eyedropper and select round cube. And there we go, it's working perfectly. It's conformed the shape perfectly to our cup, meaning it's flattened it into it completely. And that's because it's taking every vertex in the entire model of the handle and flattening it in here. What we're going to do is tell it only to specify certain vertex to stick to it. So let me disable shrink wrap for the moment. I can just hide it, I think. Nope. Just by turning it off in the viewport and in edit mode. And then I'll jump into edit mode on the handle again. Jump into face select. And select the end of the handle, the bits that are going to be connected to the cup. And what we're going to do is create a vertex group with these. So then we can apply shrink wrap to only these specified vertex. It will shrink the ends of the handle to the cup. And you'll even see in shrink wrap, there is a slot for vertex group. So let's create a vertex group by going to the vertex properties, data properties, symbol down here. And the first panel is for vertex groups. Let's click the plus to add a new group. You can rename it if you want. Handle and then click assign. So much like the material viewport, when we click assign, it's going to assign those vertex to this vertex group. Handle end, assigned, and just taking these ends. Back in object mode. And in my modifier stack, I can turn shrink wrap back on. I see right now it's sticking to it. If I change the vertex group to be handle end, now no matter where I move this thing, it's going to conform and stick to the cup. And I'm going to change the wrap method slightly to project. I'll see something like this. It's projecting onto the cup. But it's projecting in all three axes. I just want to project in the x-axis because I'm on the x-axis right now. So I'll select X, and if I see nothing, it just means that I have to flip the negative positive value. Just turn that on. There we go. Project on surface, negative. And back in edit mode, I'm just going to move it closer. GX. Now, you might see some intersection with your mesh. They've added the offset for just this feature. That actually doesn't look too bad there. But if it's going to cause problems with rendering or anything in the game, you can offset the shrink wrap ever so slightly so it's not completely flush to it. So increasing that offset by 0.01, you'll see that's no longer protruding through the mesh as it was there. Even a really small value could help. Anyway, just so you know that's there. Okay, handle is complete. Save your work. For the lens eye, a much simpler model, a cylinder. So we'll just create a cylinder in the relevant location and then we can modify as needed. So I'll jump into front view. And I'll just place my 3D cursor where I think it's going to be. About there is good. Maybe a little bit higher. Then I'm just going to add a cylinder into the mix. Cylinder. Vertices 16. So lower the vertices. Radius. Rotation on the X 90. Okay, and before we do any modeling, remember to apply all of your transforms. Object apply, all transforms. And in object, I'm just going to change the name of this cylinder to I. I can bring this forward a bit, and I realize by resetting all the transforms, I reset the origin point. If this has happened to you and you don't like it, we can just change our origin up here. Set origin, origin to geometry. Okay, so back into edit mode. I'm just going to inset this front face. And then extrude, but extrude inwards. Intrude? Just extrude inwards, but don't go past the bottom there. I've gone too far. With this circular face still selected, I'm going to duplicate it. Control D. And press Y to lock it into the Y axis. And this is going to be my lens. Then with this selected, I'm going to delete only faces. So we can't keep this lens as one solid N-gon like this, because we're going to add some subdivision surface to it, and then this is going to get crumpled up. So we need to add some more dimension to it. So first I'm going to press X, and not delete faces, delete only faces, so I'm left with the edges. That perfect edge is going to fit into my camera gap. So now I just have this edge. I'm going to select this edge. And then I'm just going to add a grid fill. So go to face, grid fill. And so you have a nicer filling of faces than the N-gon. Extrude this very slightly just to give some thickness. Then you can press Control L or L to select linked and select the whole lens by itself. L. And then we can just place that back in its housing. Yep. Okay. And you have the edge loop selected. That should be okay. Maybe. Subdivision surface might crunch it up. We'll see. Okay, so slightly thick lens sitting in the housing. And yes, let's add subdivision surface and bevel to these. Add modifier, subdivision surface. Yeah, you can see it's folded it right down. We're going to need to add some crease to our lens, some of these edges. And I'll add a bevel as well. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to jump back into edit mode. Oof, hard to see. I'm just going to turn off these modifiers in viewport. for a minute. And then I just want to grab my loops. Shift Alt, grab these 3 edge loops. And once again, we'll use edge crease to sharpen up that edge. Shift E, edge crease. Just to get them hard and flat. And I might add another level of sub D here. In bevel, we're going to go down to geometry. I'm just going to turn off clamp overlap. Notice we're getting a bit of beveling on the lens. There, we want that. I'll just increase the angle to 60. So as I increase, you'll see things change. Oh, I can't see this in edit mode, so I'm not seeing the change. Yeah, I'll jump back into... No, I'll leave that on. Right. Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, let's go. Get on in. There we go. Basically just bring it up until it's in shape. And then the last thing I'm going to do is similar to the handle. I want to shrink wrap the end of my eyeball to the front here. So back to face select. Oh. Over to vertex, and we'll make a vertex group. I'll call it lens end. Click assign, and it'll assign the vertex of that big end gun. Back to object mode. We'll add the shrink wrap modifier. Shrink wrap. And the object again is going to be the cup, our round cube. And our vertex group, we created lens end. And you see it's giving an erratic result here. So it's going to the nearest surface point, and we have a curved surface in a cylinder, so it's trying to rectify that. Again, we'll use the project method as it's a little bit more stable. Wrap method project. And in this case, we're going to use the y-axis. As you can see, the green line for the y-axis right there. Y-axis. Oh, and it's showing up in the positive. Cool. And again, I'll add a tiny offset, 0.0025. Actually, quite a few things we changed. And the last thing with the lens, shade auto smooth. And in edit mode, I'll go ahead and move things around. I want to get it a little bit closer. Okay, what are we missing? Ah, yes. So missing a couple of things. Obviously the legs, but we skipped a detail. There's a crease in the cup, and there's an inner to the cup. Let's go back to the cup and add those extra details. We jump into edit mode on round cube. I'm just going to select everything. 8. And I'm just going to duplicate this and leave it in place. So Shift D to duplicate, and then I'm moving. Just right click to leave it in the exact same place as the original. So I've added a duplicate. And then I'm going to use Alt S, shrink fatten, just here in transform, mesh transform. Just to shrink this so it's the inner of the cup, so it's flush with the inner of the cup. So Alt S. You basically want it so it's flush with the end of the cup, but not overlapping. Next, what I'm going to do is get into edge select. I just want to grab this top edge loop of the inner that I've just created. So I'll deselect everything, Alt and click. And I'll get the loop just on the top. Let's see if I go to wireframe. I don't have anything else selected. And again, we're going to do a little trick here. I'm going to extrude in place and then scale it out. And what it's going to do is fold the top edge over and create a curve in. So extrude with E, or use extrude. And I just want to right click to leave it in place. And this, in conjunction with the bevel and the other modifiers, once I scale this out, scale, you'll see it produce this kind of lip over the top. Just want to bring it out until you're happy with it. And the last little thing is a crease, basically where the paneling is connected. So we're actually going to separate the mesh at this point, and then the subdivision surface with the beveling is going to create a nice little dimple in it. Face select once more. I'm just going to select the loop of faces on the outside. I can Alt click and get this loop of faces. And if I move this right now, it's all connected, as it should be. Press Y, it's going to separate the mesh. Split the mesh, I should say. Basically split the selection there, and that's all we need to do to create that little dimple. Just split our selection with this selected, and it'll create that little dimple for us. Y. It's separated. I go back to object mode, and I've got this little ridge in there, and a nice little lip on top. Adding a little bit of character.
Kind of reminds me of the photo turrets.
Yeah. Pretty similar. That Stephen Merchant guy. Save, I say. Save. Okay. Now, we're almost at the end. We're just at the legs, but we have been going for a full hour, so I think we should take a short break and then finish off basically at the end. Another 20 minutes, I'd say, and we're done. So I'm just going to stop the recording here for the moment.